Chapter 152. Of course I'll forgive her. In fact, she shouldn't have this ability. During her previous life, although her father hired a professional to train her so that she could learn some self-defense, she only kept at it for a month. However, she realized that when it came to combat skills or any other skills that normal people found uncommon, she was able to pick them up very quickly with her strong perceptive skills. It was like those skills were ingrained in her brain. She wasn't learning, but instead, she was merely recalling them. Previously, in order to hide from Sihan, she not only hid her looks but all the abilities she had, anything that might expose her sharpness. But in this life, she wouldn't be so silly. There was a metaphorical knife in her hand, and yet, she had allowed herself and the people around her to end up in tragedies. After school, the moment Yi Wanwan left the classroom, she saw Shen Mengqi waiting eagerly for her by the door. It seemed like she noticed that she was getting closer to Jiang Yanran and had started to panic. Wanwan. The second Shen Mengqi saw Yi Wanwan, she immediately walked over enthusiastically and hooked onto her elbow. Shall we all have a barbecue dinner tonight? Yi Wanwan replied in her usual tone, sure. While walking, Shen Mengqi probed, Wan, I heard you're living with Yanran now. It must be hard to live with someone with her character, right? Why don't you move over to my place? It's fine, I'm too lazy to move all over the place, Yi Wanwan replied nonchalantly. Shen Mengqi was still worried. Did Yanran tell you anything about me? You know me best. With Yanran's incident, I didn't do it on purpose. I had no choice when Song Zihang kept pestering me. In order to not upset her, I tried my best to hide it, but who knew it would still make her upset in the end and misunderstand me? Wanwan, you can understand how I feel, right? If it was the old Yi Wanwan, she'd definitely understand. Even if there was evidence right in front of her eyes stating otherwise, she'd still choose to believe Shen Mengqi. Yi Wanwan wrinkled her brows like she was hesitating, but in the end, she nodded. She spoke like she'd just been brainwashed. Mengqi, of course I understand. You're so pretty, kind, and amazing. It's inevitable that so many people are in love with you. How could we blame you? After hearing that, Shen Mengqi was delighted. A trace of mockery appeared beneath her eyes. I was nervous for nothing. Yi Wanwan's so dumb, she's still as gullible as before. While the two of them chatted, Shen Mengqi's phone suddenly rang. Yi Wanwan took a peek and saw it was the name of one of the junior boys in second year, one of the fanatical suitors of Shen Mengqi. His family was also well off, but of course, was incomparable to Song Zihang. There were quite a few others that she knew of who were kept hanging like spare tires by Shen Mengqi. Yi Wanwan rubbed her chin and a glow of understanding flashed across her eyes. Hello. Shen Mengqi didn't move away from Yi Wanwan and picked up the call. Saturday? I'm afraid I can't make it, I have makeup classes. I can't make it on Sunday too. I'm really sorry. Next time, all right? Shen Mengqi used the sweetest voice to reject whoever was on the phone. Her main focus was on Song Zihang now. All the spare tires 1, 2, and 3 had to be on standby for now. Shen Mengqi hung up, looked at Yi Wanwan and continued, Yanran seemed to be so in love with Song Zihang. I really didn't expect that she'd get together with Chu Feng so quickly. Probably because Chu Feng comes from a wealthy family. With the way things were going, not only was she trying to brainwash her, she was also prepared to smear Jiang Yanran and hint that Jiang Yanran was flirtatious and greedy. But actually, with Shen Mengqi's intelligence, she knew just as well as everybody else that Chu Feng's family's glory was only temporary, as the industry wasn't doing well and plummeting. They'd be bankrupt very soon. She obviously wouldn't fall for this kind of person. The two of them chatted away while walking towards the dorms to put their books down. The moment they reached the entrance to the girls' dormitory, they suddenly noticed a large crowd around the entrance. Chapter 153. Seeking death. After the people saw Shen Mengqi, their eyes lit up and they rushed towards her with eyes of envy. They announced her arrival aloud teasingly, She's here, she's here. Shen Mengqi's here. As they moved closer, Yi Wanwan saw a big heart shape on the ground floor of the girls' dorm made of candles. In the middle was Shen Mengqi's name, and surrounding it was a sea of roses. Song Zihang's tall and handsome figure stood there. In his arms was a giant bouquet of roses, almost half as tall as a person, and his gaze was fixated on Shen Mengqi. Shen Mengqi played along and gave a shocked expression. Her helpless and shy appearance, like a little white bunny, was enough to tug at the heartstrings of any guy. Under the gaze of all the onlookers, Song Ziheng carried the flowers and walked towards Shen Mengqi with vigorous strides. "Mengqi, forgive me for being presumptuous. But there are some things, some feelings that I can't hold back any longer. I like you. From the first time I met you, I fell deeply for you. I like your simplicity, your kindness, your innocence, your everything. I know you're the one I want, the one I'm destined to be with, the one I want to protect my entire life." Song Ziheng's confession caused the crowd to scream in excitement and envy. "That's so romantic and lovely. Captain Song, you're amazing. If someone courted me like that, my life would be complete. Say yes. Say yes." Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes and was speechless when she saw all those candles and roses. This method of confession was so outdated but was probably quite novel for this period in time. "TSK, this Song Ziheng doesn't let me down. He's still dashing ahead on the road to death." The Song family gave him a call deliberately to get him to pacify Jiang Yanran. Instead, he did the exact opposite. Since he was thoroughly embarrassed by Jiang Yanran that morning and lost his dignity, he made a grand confession to Shen Mengqi for revenge. At this moment, Yi Wanwan saw from afar that Jiang Yanran was also in the crowd. The people around her were gesticulating. Most of them were either gloating or sympathizing with her. Jiang Yanran's so unlucky. After all, she was the one who liked Song Ziheng first. That's right, although Chu Feng's not that bad, the Chu family has a mess to deal with and they probably reached their end already. Unlike the Song family, their news is everywhere on the economics cover page. But you can't blame Song Ziheng for choosing Shen Mengqi. There aren't many girls who are as simple and kind as Shen Mengqi these days. Initially, Yi Wanwan was worried about Jiang Yanran, but thankfully, her reaction was better than expected. She only glanced at all of this coldly and was disinterested in Song Ziheng's performance as she carried her books back into the dormitory nonchalantly. While Shen Mengqi next to her was blushing under the envious eyes of everyone and basking in Song Ziheng's affectionate confession, she appeared to be very shy, inciting an urge to embrace and love her. Seeing Shen Mengqi's abashed little face, the agitation that Song Ziheng felt that morning by Jiang Yanran instantly disappeared. When he saw the retreating figure of Jiang Yanran from the corner of his eye, he even thought that she left heartbroken. Song Ziheng looked at Shen Mengqi once again and continued his confession with deep emotions. "Mengqi, be with me. Give me the chance to take care of you, protect you and give you happiness." Shen Mengqi obviously didn't let such a good opportunity to clutch onto Song Ziheng pass. However, with her shrewdness, she wouldn't accept him directly in front of everyone. She put on a shy face the whole way and accepted the flowers from Song Ziheng after making a polite show of declining. She still didn't say a word and hurried back into the dormitory, blushing. With this kind of reaction, it could be thought that she had accepted him in the eyes of Song Ziheng and the crowd. However, if she wanted to deny what happened or pacify her spare tires, she'd be able to. Yi Wanwan watched delightfully as Song Ziheng sought death. She calculated the time in her heart. Uncle Jiang should be ready soon and it was also time for her to prepare. Chapter 154. Recovered losses. In the following week, Song Ziheng let himself loose and got very intimate with Shen Mengqi. Yi Wanwan observed the situation with the Jiang family calmly while gathering information secretly and waited for an opportunity. Her big move on Xia had worked for quite some time. The boy was very well behaved for an entire week and didn't dare to provoke her, and he was also very obedient during rehearsals. After waiting in silence for several days, the news that Yi Wanwan was waiting for finally arrived. Today was the day of the government open bid. Mr. Jiang called just as she arrived back at the dormitory that night. Yi Wanwan prompted Jiang Yanran anxiously with her eyes glistening. "Quick, answer it." Jiang Yanran nodded and turned on the loudspeaker. "Hello, Daddy?" Mr. Jiang's loving voice came through the receiver. "Hello, Yanran. Daddy called to tell you some good news. Today's bid was very successful. We got the project." Although it was expected, Yi Wanwan was still quite emotional. While she was still basking in happiness, Mr. Jiang went on, "Also, we've publicly announced the cancellation of your engagement with the Songs. Thanks to your friend's warning, we were able to act in time before they were alerted. I've withdrawn all the funds from the other projects and cancelled numerous collaborations and dealings. I've also managed to recover all our losses. Most importantly, that big project was in the Jiang's hands. So anyhow, they made some gains from it." "Oh right, is your friend there?" "She's here." Jiang Yen ran past the phone over to Wanwan. "Uncle Jiang, I'm here." "Wanwan, come over for dinner when you're free. Uncle owes you a big one. Let me know if you need help in future." "Thank you, Uncle." Uncle should be the one thanking you." At the same time, in the school canteen, Song Ziheng didn't have a clue about what was going on and was still enjoying a sweet dinner with Shin Mengqi. These days, the two of them were always together like a little couple deeply in love. They were still displaying their affection publicly as usual today. "Ziheng, today's the day your family takes part in the bid with the government, right? I wonder what the result will be," Shin Mengqi asked in a caring manner, filled with curiosity. Once she mentioned that, Song Ziheng was immediately filled with satisfaction and said confidently, "I spoke to my dad last night, everything's in place. The funds will definitely reach us soon. There's absolutely no problem." Shen Mengqi sighed in relief and said, "That's good. At first, I was worried that I would cause trouble for you." "What if Yen Ran said some things to her parents?" Song Ziheng replied fearlessly. "How could that be, Mengqi? You're too simple-minded. Both our families have worked together for so many years and are inseparable. Our partnership isn't something that can be destroyed by a spoiled princess like Jiang Yen Ran spouting a few words. Look at how impressive the Jiangs are now. It's all because they have our backing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived." Jiang Yen Ran's parents were both in the entertainment industry before and went through a complete career change. What would they know about doing business? "That's true. It's truly all thanks to your family. Yen Ran's too ungrateful and even pulled that trick with Chu Feng. Isn't she trying to make you look bad on purpose?" Shen Mengqi said defensively and looked at him in admiration. Chapter 155. Fiery Rage. Song Ziheng thoroughly enjoyed being looked at this way and continued pouring lavish praises on Shen Mengqi. "Don't talk about that woman. How could she compare to you? Mengqi, I'm my father's only son and will definitely inherit the wealth of the family. By then, I'll definitely give you the best of everything." "Ziheng," Shen Mengqi appeared to be moved, "I don't care about any of that. As long as I can be with you, that's all I need." While the two of them were being lovey-dovey, Song Ziheng's phone rang. Upon seeing the caller ID, Song Ziheng's face brightened. "My dad's calling, it must be to report the good news." Shen Mengqi was also very excited when she heard that. "Hello, Dad." Song Ziheng immediately picked up the call. "Ziheng, get back here right now." Daddy Song's solemn voice came through the receiver. Song Ziheng was still clouded by the excitement of having the kingdom and this beauty in his hands and didn't hear the difference in his father's tone. "Got it, I'll come back right now." After he hung up, Song Ziheng told Shen Mengqi, "Mengqi, my dad wants me to go back. It's probably to attend the celebration party. You should get going then." Shen Mengqi revealed a joyful expression, certain that she didn't put her stakes on the wrong horse. Song Ziheng held the girl's slender hand. "Mengqi, I'll tell my parents about us after I head back. I'll be able to bring you home next time." Song Ziheng rushed back home eagerly. "Dad, congratulations. Are we having a celebration tonight?" Song Ziheng pushed the door open and entered the living room in high spirits. But then he was hit on the head by a teacup the moment he stepped in. "Bastard!" Song Ziheng's forehead started hurting as he got his wits smashed out of him. "Dad? You're insane." Mrs. Song saw her own son being hit on the head and was heartbroken. She brought a towel over and pressed on the wound. "Old Song, can't you talk things out nicely? Do you have to use such a heavy hand?" "Talk nicely? How do you want me to talk to him nicely?" Mr. Song's face turned red with fury. "Mom? What exactly happened? Isn't today the day of the bid? Dad, why were you so angry, hitting me the moment I get back? Am I really your son?" Song Zihang said resentfully. Mrs. Song covered her son's mouth like he said something taboo. Don't mention the bid. At first, the Jiangs promised they would transfer the 100 million over before the bid. Who knew that they didn't transfer the money and even entered the bid to compete with us? The project landed in the Jiang family's hands. Song Zihang's expression changed instantly and he shouted in an uncontrollable rage, "Mom! What did you just say?" The Jiangs acted in bad faith. How could they do this? That project was rightfully ours. Mrs. Song continued gravely, that isn't the worst part. Our families were relatives by marriage. It's fine if they don't trust our family and took the deal away. We'd be a family sooner or later and the Jiang family only has one daughter so everything would belong to you. However, after the bidding ended, that Jiang Haichao actually announced the cancellation of our two families' engagement in front of everyone and even said that they want to cut all ties. All the collaborations between both our families were severed overnight. Song Zihang was in disbelief. Mom! What did you just say? They called off the engagement? How can they simply call it off whenever they want? Who do they think we are? Throwing us away when our value has depleted? They're going too far. We can't let this go. Chapter 156. Ask your dear son. Mrs. Song sized her son up and hesitated. Zihang, let me ask you, did you have no idea what was going on at all? Did you do something that you weren't supposed to do? Upon hearing his mother's skeptical tone, Song Zihang blurted out, Mom, what do you mean by that? How would I know? What could I have possibly done? Also, Dad, I wanted to ask you, didn't you keep saying that there's no problem at all? How did it become like this all of a sudden? Did the deal go bust before? Mr. Song slammed the table and shouted, You don't know? If you didn't know, why would Jiang Haichao tell me to go home and ask my dear son? Whose fault could it be other than yours? Do you know how much manpower, resources and finances the company has invested into this bid? We even took up a huge loan. All the money has been invested into the equipment for that machine factory. Now that the deal's gone, everything has become a pile of scrap metal. What? Jiang Haichao told Dad to come home and ask me? Song Zihang's heart thumped hard as cold sweat started trickling down his spine. Ask me, Mrs. Song said anxiously. Yes. Zihang, quickly, think about what you've done exactly. There might be a way to salvage this. Otherwise, the company's really gone. Our whole family will have to sleep on the streets. Actually, from the time the Jiang family delayed the loan, I sensed something was off. Now that I think back, Jiang Haichao had probably started making plans from that point in time. Otherwise, the projects couldn't have been withdrawn so quickly and the bid wouldn't have gone so smoothly, catching us off guard. Your father and I thought about it for a long time and we were sure that nothing unusual happened during this period. Jiang Haichao's attitude has always been the same and both our families didn't have any conflicts, so we really couldn't figure out why he turned against us suddenly. Think about it carefully. What have you done recently? Mr. Song then stared at his son in anger. That day, I specifically called you to tell you to be nicer to Yen Ran. Did you act accordingly? Let me ask you, did you make Yen Ran angry? Song Zihang's face was ghastly pale at this point in time. Facing his raging father, he swallowed his saliva and forced himself to be calm. Then, he denied it without the slightest hesitation. How could that be? Dad, Mom, you guys still don't know me? Since when have I not waited upon that rich girl, Jiang Yen Ran, like a princess? All I have done is tolerated her temper. How could I make her angry? Don't you guys know what I've been through all these years? I really didn't expect that even after suffering such indignities without complaint, Jiang Haichao was still so petty and unsatisfied with me. It's obvious that the Jiangs are ungrateful and discarded us after our help was expended. Mr. Song stared at his son sternly for a long time. Chapter 157. Incredibly shameless. Seeing that his parents were no longer suspicious, Song Zihang heaved a sigh of relief silently. Thankfully, he had been very nice to Yen Ran in front of the parents of both families. Even Jiang Haichao wouldn't suspect him, much less his parents. Then how did this happen? How did things end up this way? In the blink of an eye, he lost everything. The project was gone, the collaboration was gone, the production line was useless, the company was knee-deep in debt and was about to go bankrupt. He knew Jiang Yanran too well and was confident that he already had that woman hooked. No matter what he did, she'd never object because she was afraid that he'd hate her, so it was impossible that she'd go home to complain. So what if he protected Meng Qi and confessed to her in public? That would only make Yanran jealous and become more devoted to him. Now, she dolled up so beautifully and ran to Chu Feng just to provoke him and try to change his mind, right? He never expected that Jiang Haichao would actually call off the engagement between the two families. Damn it. I knew it. It must be because that woman, Jiang Yanran, was pushed too far, so she had to use heavy tactics to force me to submit. Song Zihang tried probing his dad. Dad, what should we do now? A sense of tiredness overwhelmed Mr. Song's face. I can only think of one thing. If the Jiang family is willing to work with us on this government project, that's the only way to salvage things. But if Jiang Haichao really wants to be so brutal, I won't let him have it so easy. I'll fight until both sides perish. I want everyone to know the crafty and treacherous side of the Jiangs. Then we'll see how they can continue to work in this field, how their daughter is going to get married. Song Zihang's face turned gloomy. Dad, you're right. The Song family is not to be trifled with. Mrs. Song looked at her son, heartbroken. Zihang, it's been hard on you all these years. You've been so kind to Yanran, yet the Jiangs were so ruthless nonetheless. After Song Zihang left his house, he rushed back to school with rage burning inside of him. At the same time, Yi Wanwan and Jiang Yanran had enjoyed a lavish meal at the barbecue stall in celebration and were taking a stroll by the sports grounds to digest their food. Suddenly, Jiang Yanran's phone rang. Jiang Yanran opened the text to take a look. Song Zihang asked to meet me. Yi Wanwan lifted her gaze, unbothered by it. Meet him then. After all, it was a good opportunity for Jiang Yanran to see the true colors of this scumbag. Jiang Yanran pinched her fingers and then replied, I'm at the sports grounds. I'll sit over there and wait for you. Yi Wanwan went and sat down at the stands nearby. Song Zihang got there very quickly, almost sprinting like the wind to Jiang Yanran. He had just managed to catch his breath before he immediately started scolding her. Jiang Yanran, I really didn't expect that you'd be this kind of person. You tossed me away once you hooked up with that gigolo, Chu Feng. And you actually made your father call off the engagement. You think the engagement can be called off just like that by the Jiang family? What do you think the Song family is? People that at your beck and call. Jiang Yanran looked at the boy in front of her, expressionless. Are you done? What? Wasn't I right? Are you feeling guilty now? I really didn't expect that you'd be so evil. That project belongs to my family. Who are you to snatch it from us? Upon hearing what Song Zihang said, even Yi Wanwan was stunned and amazed by how shameless he was. Chapter 158. Who hasn't fallen for a few scumbags before? Jiang Yanran had an indescribable sadness in her heart. Oh, I'm evil for calling off the engagement? Who exactly declared that the engagement didn't exist and said that he wasn't related to me at all? I've only fulfilled your desires. What? Is that wrong? An icy glow flashed beneath Song Zihang's eyes. Jiang Yanran, don't bring that up and make a thing of it now. I'm warning you, you better go back and get your father to retract what he said about calling off the engagement and work together with the Song family for the project. Of course, it's fine if you insist on calling off the engagement. As compensation, you just have to hand the project over to the Song family. Then I can act like this incident never happened. Otherwise, don't hope that I can forgive you in this lifetime. Don't test my patience. There has to be a limit to your stubbornness. Song Zihang's attitude seemed like he was certain that Jiang Yanran's actions aimed to get him to change his mind. He clearly thought that she was still deeply in love with him and that she was still the same girl who'd give in to him whenever he got angry. Watching the guy she used to like for so many years saying all these ridiculous things, finally, the last glimmer of light in Jiang Yanran's eyes went out. Song Zihang, you disgust me. You. Song Zihang watched the retreating figure of the girl, his face filled with fury. In the girls' dormitory, after they went back, Yi Wanwan sensed that Jiang Yanran was a little upset. Are you okay? Jiang Yanran smiled bitterly. I just found it quite scary. What if I hadn't seen his true colors in time? What would have happened to me in the end? Thinking back to what happened to Jiang Yanran in the end, Yi Wanwan's heart froze as well. Yi Wanwan understood very well how it felt to have your beliefs vanish into thin air. She sighed and said, "Cheer up, who hasn't fallen for a few scumbags when they were young?" Jiang Yanran was amused and laughed out loud. Speaking of which, we both seem to be in the same boat. Actually, I've always been quite curious. You were so in love with Gu Yuze before, what made you change your mind all of a sudden? Yi Wanwan's eyes turned slightly gloomy and replied, I found out about some truths by accident. In the next few days, as the bidding process was still incomplete and results hadn't been announced publicly, very few people knew about it and the public wasn't aware of the outcome. As Song Ziheng had previously boasted about it nonstop, every student in school assumed that the Song family got it. These people went up to Song Ziheng to congratulate him and try to curry favor with him. Shen Mengqi was very sharp and realized that Song Ziheng seemed to be distracted these few days. She wasn't sure whether it was because he was affected by Jiang Yanran's recent transformation or that he was overjoyed at securing the deal. Anyhow, she couldn't let the prey in her hands escape again. Thus, she was more courteous towards Song Ziheng and even took the initiative to ask him out that Saturday. With each passing day that the project remained out of his hands, Song Ziheng became uneasy. He still maintained the fantasy that Jiang Yanran would compromise eventually. While he was shopping with Shen Mengqi, he received a call from home once again. Song Ziheng ducked away from Shen Mengqi and answered the call. Hello, Mom, how's everything? His mother's furious voice came through the receiver immediately. Ziheng, the Jiang family is too cruel this time. We can't think of a way out now. He could help us out with just a simple lift of his finger, but he'd rather have the expensive equipment that our company bought than work with us. He's obviously pushing us to our death. That old bastard. He's actually treating us like that. Song Ziheng boiled in anger. Chapter 159. Revenge in Desperation. Mrs. Song's tone became somewhat deranged. I won't let them off. I'll never let them off. Tithe Jiang Haichao. He thinks he'll be fine by hiding from me? He wants his daughter to marry someone better off? There's no way. I'll make that wretch lose her reputation. I'll let everyone know how the Jiangs were so treacherous that they broke the contract. Let's see who'd want the Jiang family's junk then. Mom? What are you planning to do? Don't you worry. Mommy will definitely help you get revenge. Wait. She already hung up. Shen Mengqi walked over to him with a worried look. Ziheng, what happened? Who called? Nothing. Song Ziheng shook his head and felt uneasy. The Jiang family still hadn't relented yet? Shen Mengqi was too focused on winning him over from Jiang Yanran and didn't think too much of it. Let's go get our pictures taken then. If we don't go now, there'll be lots of people lining up later. She had already concluded that Song Ziheng's unusual behavior these few days was all due to Jiang Yanran. Dressing up to the nines and getting all intimate with Chu Feng. Does Jiang Yanran really think that I don't know her true intentions? If Jiang Yanran stopped fighting with her, she wouldn't need to put in so much effort. To her, the more someone wanted something, the more valuable it became and the more satisfaction she'd feel once she obtained it. At Qinghe High School, the performance was in a few days' time. Most of the students didn't go home that weekend and were busy decorating the hall and rehearsing. In the big hall, many classes lined up to rehearse. There were people bustling about and the whole place felt very lively. The show that Senior Class A was performing was ballet. Jiang Yanran and Shen Mengqi were both in it. Next is Class A's Swan Lake. Is everyone here? The host asked aloud. Wait, there's still one more. She's on the way. She'll be here very soon. The captain of the dance team from Class A replied. Make her hurry. Got it, got it. Who are we waiting on from our class? Someone asked. Shen Mengqi. She went out today, the captain replied. Went out? Where'd she go? How could she be late for the rehearsal? I think I saw her leaving through the school gates with Song Ziheng this morning. Someone replied softly. Oh, everybody responded like they were suddenly enlightened and looked pointedly at Jiang Yanran. who was stretching in the corner. Everyone started whispering. Shen Mengqi and Song Ziheng should have started dating already, right? Seems like it. They're a perfect match. Unlike someone here who pestered him and came up with a lie about having an engagement when her plan failed. Exactly, she was obviously the one breaking up the couple and accused Shen Mengqi of being the third party. Jiang Yanran was usually arrogant and domineering and had offended quite a number of people. Plus, she was very gifted and was the best at dancing, so naturally, they took advantage of the chance to ridicule her. Just as it was Class A's turn to rehearse, a middle-aged woman in a navy blue cheongsam suddenly shoved through the crowd and walked towards the stage. Everyone in the hall was a student. The sudden appearance of a middle-aged woman caused everybody to turn to look at her. Most of them recognized she was Song Ziheng's mother. Everybody could see the towering rage across her face. She walked straight to Jiang Yanran in her high heels and slapped her in her face without hesitation. "You shameless little bitch." Chapter 160. Devoted? Mrs. Song's appearance was too sudden and Jiang Yanran didn't manage to dodge in time, so she caught a hard slap to the face. The big lively hall was in total silence all of a sudden. Mrs. Song pointed at Jiang Yanran's nose and started yelling, "Ungrateful little bitch, your whole family is trash. Before, you insisted on having your nuptials prearranged with our Ziheng, but now that you have power, you've kicked him aside. Calling off the wedding and trying to climb up the ladder. Do you really think the Song family is that easily bullied? Tell me, which gigolo did you hook up with behind Ziheng's back? The one with the surname Chu?" Jiang Haichao really brought up his daughter well. Flirting around when she's engaged to someone. Once you found someone richer, you tossed our Ziheng away and even snatched our family's project, forcing our family to the brink of death. I used to treat you like a princess, but you actually think you are one? Based on your talent, looks and actions, you're not worthy of my son at all. If it wasn't for you wasting his time, my son would have found someone better. My son was so devoted to you, yet you were so unappreciative and kept criticizing him." Mrs. Song let loose a flood of words, cursing and swearing at her, with each comment getting uglier. As she was an elder, Jiang Yanran remained respectful and didn't say a word at all. Her body trembled slightly and her expression was dazed and numb. She didn't expect that Auntie Song, who was usually so warm and nice towards her, someone who she treated like her own mother in her heart, would actually be so malicious with her words. Could it be that the love she showed for me was fake this whole time? I've never felt unworthy of Song Ziheng. Amongst the crowd, Yi Wanwan's gaze paused at Jiang Yanran's red and swollen face and a hint of coldness flashed in her eyes. Suddenly she exclaimed aloud, "Oh God! Jiang Yanran and Song Ziheng actually had an engagement? How could that be?" Mrs. Song, who was still in the midst of scolding Yanran, heard that questioning voice and became even more enraged. She scanned her eyes over everybody present in the hall and said firmly, "Why wouldn't there be? Did this little bitch lie and say she didn't have anything to do with the Song family? Let me tell all of you, the two of them have been engaged to each other before they were even born. Parents from both families saw their fortunes and exchanged cards. There isn't anybody in our circle who doesn't know they're a pair. My son was so nice to her and pampered her like a princess so devotedly, how could she have the guts to deny this? Everyone, take a look at the true colors of this little bitch. She cheated on my son and even wanted to take down my family's company. How is there such an evil woman in this world?" Upon hearing what Mrs. Song said, the onlookers were stunned. Damn, what did this woman just say? Song Ziheng and Jiang Yanran really had an engagement. She actually said that Song Ziheng was devoted to Jiang Yanran? Mrs. Song noticed that there was something wrong with the way the onlookers looked at her but couldn't figure out what it was. Yi Wanwan looked at her mockingly and said with doubt, "That's impossible. Auntie, you must be lying. Song Ziheng's girlfriend is obviously Shen Mengqi. How is he related to Jiang Yanran at all?" Mrs. Song couldn't tolerate this kind of accusation and was furious as she blurted out, "I'm lying. I'm Song Ziheng's mother. How could my words be fake? Obviously, this little bitch was lying. Who on earth is Shen Mengqi? What nonsense are you spouting?" Chapter 161. Twisting the facts. Yi Wanwan protested, "Meng Qi's my best friend. We all know that she's the honorable girlfriend of Song Zihang. I think you're the one spouting nonsense. Are you trying to accuse our Meng Qi of being the third party here? You're too much." "What did you say?" Zihang's girlfriend, Mrs. Song, was shocked. As she looked at Jiang Yanran's red and swollen face, a sense of uneasiness arose in her heart. At this point, almost everybody understood what was going on. Yi Wanwan didn't have to continue anymore. A girl standing next to Mrs. Song turned to her and asked, "You're Song Zihang's mom? Did you know that Song Zihang declared to the whole school that he doesn't have anything to do with Jiang Yanran and even said that the engagement didn't exist? He said it was just a joke between the two families, and then he confessed his love to another girl on the spot." Mrs. Song came to her senses and replied angrily, This can't be true. How could my son do something like that? Stop attacking him." Some people couldn't tolerate this any further and started talking all at once. "How are we attacking him? Everybody in school knows about this. We're all witnesses, okay?" That's right. When Jiang Yanran found out that Song Zihang had a secret date with her best friend, Shen Mengqi, she had a fight with her. We were all initially helping Jiang Yanran scold Mengqi, but in the end, Song Zihang slapped Jiang Yanran in front of everyone and announced on the school's forum that he didn't have an engagement with her. If you don't believe us, you can see it for yourself on the forum. Look for the video of Jiang Yanran attacking the third party and Song Zihang defending the third party. The announcement and everything else are on there. Song Zihang confessed to Shen Mengqi in a very grand way with candles and flowers, and they've been together constantly these past few days. You're now saying that he and Jiang Yanran were engaged? Don't you think that's a bit contradictory? At this time, the speculations were getting louder and everybody was shocked at this turn of events. I didn't think that Song Zihang had been lying this whole time to protect the third party. Shen Mengqi really was the third party. I thought Song Zihang was quite manly at first, but who knew he was a scumbag who hooked up with his fiancée's best friend behind her back? His mom actually dared to say he was devoted to Jiang Yanran? Where did she find the guts to say that? What do you mean behind her back? He hooked up with that girl right under Jiang Yanran's nose? TSK. Also, the big project that Song Zihang has been boasting about was busted already. Probably as revenge from the Jiang family. He deserves it. I thought the Song family was powerful, but they only relied on help from the Jiang family. His mom actually came down to school to twist the facts and slap Jiang Yanran, putting the blame on the victim. Oh my God. This has me totally twisted. What kind of people are in this family? They're just a pack of ungrateful wolves. They're shameless. Mrs. Song became paler and paler when she heard the overwhelming ridicule and insults circling around her. Her initial plan was to find Jiang Yanran to seek revenge and ruin her reputation, but instead, she learnt the truth and almost fainted on the spot. The reason why the Jiang family wanted to call off the engagement suddenly was because of this. Zihang denied the engagement in front of everyone and hooked up with another girl in school immediately after? This is impossible. This is completely impossible. Yi Wanwan caught a glimpse of a figure trying to sneak off into the crowd, and she rushed over nimbly, grabbed onto Shen Mengqi's elbow and said anxiously, "Mengqi, you're finally here. Hurry, explain things to everyone. They're too much. They actually said that you're a shameless third party. You're definitely not this kind of person, right?" Suddenly, everybody turned to Yi Wanwan and saw the flustered Shen Mengqi standing next to Song Zihang. Chapter 162. Avoiding Responsibility? Yi Wanwan's words seemed to defend Shen Mengqi, yet they pushed her directly into the eye of the storm once again. It's fine that this ugly freak isn't good-looking, but is there something wrong with her brain too? Zihang's mom already said that there was an engagement, yet Wanwan still thinks it was a misunderstanding. What else should we call Mengqi other than the third party? Song Zihang has really tested my limits. On one hand, he was relying on his fiancée's family's support, and on the other, he went with a slut in front of her. His family is on the verge of bankruptcy, and yet he's still fooling around and trying to put up a front, acting like a rich young kid. Shen Mengqi tried shaking her off, but before she managed to weasel out of Yi Wanwan's grasp, she was blocked by the crowd. She was astounded. She never expected that things would turn out this way. She always aimed high. Her greatest goal was to be with Si Han, but she knew very well how distant that man was and low the possibility of being with him was, so she didn't act silly and sit around to wait for an unobtainable target. She'd be graduating soon and was preparing to enter the entertainment industry, so she needed a strong backer. She knew her strengths very well. Unlike those old foxes who'd already entered high society, these little boys in school were easier to entrap. Among the boys whom she paid attention to, only the young master of the Zheng family was up to par. Although all these rich kids had honorable families, they didn't have much authority at home. She had to wait many years for him to take over the business and manage the household. She tried probing him a few times, but after she found out she couldn't get what she wanted from him, she left him hanging and treated him like a spare tire, just like how she treated every other guy. But Song Zihang was different. Once he graduated, he'd be able to enter the family company. Furthermore, after they got that government project, they'd generate large profits and capital instantly. It was smooth sailing at first. During today's date, Song Zihang had promised her that once he graduated, he'd convince his dad to invest in $1 million movie and designate her as the female lead. The male lead and important supporting roles would also be from their company. If she was able to pull such a big investment, she could immediately gain a foothold in the entertainment industry while allowing the company to gain recognition. After the date, Song Zihang said that he wanted to accompany her to rehearsal, and she readily agreed, eager to show off her trophy to Jiang Yanran. Who would have guessed that once they stepped in, they'd see Song Zihang's mother making a scene in the hall, telling everyone about the engagement between Song Zihang and Jiang Yanran. Not only that, what did Mrs. Song just say? Not to mention the big project that the Song family didn't get, but now they're being forced by the Jiang family to the verge of bankruptcy? Just a second ago, Song Zihang said boldly that he wanted to make me the most popular actress. He even said that the Jiang family wouldn't be able to do that without the Songs and didn't dare to offend them. He was actually lying to me from the start. The boy that she'd laboriously scavenged would soon become a worthless pauper. If she'd known this earlier, she would have spent all her efforts on Jing Bin. Hearing all the nasty comments around him and facing Shen Mengqi's stare, Song Zihang turned pale and went into a frantic rage. He dashed to his mom. "Mom, are you crazy? What are you doing here? You're asking me? Let me ask you, were they telling the truth? You really went to find a woman behind Yan Ran's back? She's the one?" Mrs. Song shot daggers at Shen Mengqi. Due to Yi Wanwan holding her back, Shen Mengqi didn't manage to escape in time and could only hide behind Song Zihang. Song Zihang's face darkened as he protected Shen Mengqi. "Mom, let's go home and talk." Chapter 163. Made a fool out of you. With the bare truth in front of her, Mrs. Song felt as if heaven and earth were falling down. When she thought about how she slapped Jiang Yanran and how she could never take that back, she felt so remorseful that her intestines turned green. Under her rage and panic, she had shifted all her hatred onto that woman. Now, she charged at Shen Mengqi and grabbed her by the hair. "You shameless bitch! You're the one who seduced my son, right? I'll beat you to death, you shit! Seducing someone else's fiancé at such a young age. How did your parents raise you?" Shen Mengqi didn't expect that a casual comment by Yi Wanwan could have this effect. Her scalp was nearly ripped out by Mrs. Song as she shrieked in pain. I don't know. I don't know anything. You don't know. You're still pretending now. You saw that our Zihang was a good chance for you to climb your way up. I've seen many people like you." Song Zihang saw that his sweetheart was being scolded and beaten by his mother and started panicking. "Mom, what are you doing? Let Mengqi go. I told you, this has nothing to do with Mengqi. I'm the only one at fault. So what if I like Mengqi? She's simple and kind, 1,000 times better than Jiang Yanran." "Shut up. Get over here and apologize to Yanran. I think your heart's covered in pig oil. What the hell did you feed my son, you wretch? Bring your parents here. I want to see which family raised such a shameless daughter." Song Zihang looked at how Shen Mengqi was in tears and his heart almost shattered. I'm not apologizing. Why should I apologize? Even if I hadn't done what I did, the Jiang family already had these intentions. You think Jiang Yan Ran's any more faithful? She ran straight to the gigolo from the Chu family right after. Shen Mengqi was sobbing, Auntie, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I really didn't know that Zihang was already engaged. I'm really in love with him. Zihang's an outstanding guy. I'm sure many girls are attracted to him. At first, I held my feelings back because of Yan Ran, but it was Zihang who gave me courage. But if I'd known that he and Yan Ran were engaged, I would never have gone between them. Shen Mengqi's tears were like raindrops on a pear blossom, and she managed to cast all blame aside with just a few words. She'd even portrayed herself as a victim. That woeful and pitiful face not only made Song Zihang heartbroken, but even Mrs. Song had a change of heart when she heard her praising her son. Her heart softened and everybody was moved by her words. Judging by Shen Mengqi's looks, she really couldn't have known about it, right? She was probably lied to by that scumbag Song. Shen Mengqi's simply too innocent. Scumbags cause tons of trouble. Yi Wanwan hid in the crowd and a smirk surfaced on her mouth. Even now, she's still trying in vain to get herself acquitted. I'm really looking forward to seeing Song Zihang's reaction when he finds out that he's been made a fool and was treated as a spare tire and a sucker this whole time. Yi Wanwan walked silently over to a secluded corner and made a call. Hello, Jingbin, I'm Mengqi's friend. She's in some trouble right now and is being bullied by Song Zihang. You should come over quick. We're at the schoolhouse. It's really urgent and you're the only one who can help Mengqi out of this. Chapter 164. My woman. After she called Jingbin, Yi Wanwan glanced at the crowd and realized that more and more people were speaking up for Shen Mengqi, most of them her admirers. Seeing their goddess being hurt by a scumbag, these people were heartbroken and started scolding Song Zihang and his mother. They even pulled Jiang Yan Ran back into the picture and scolded her as well. It was as if the most innocent person was Shen Mengqi. Jiang Yan Ran looked coldly at Shen Mengqi, who had her beautiful little face covered in tears, looking very pitiful and begging for forgiveness. Then she turned to look at Song Zihang, who was criticizing her nonstop. She closed her eyes tiredly, wanting to leave. Yi Wanwan crept over to Jiang Yan Ran's side and lowered her voice. Are you happy with this? Don't worry, there's more coming. Jiang Yan Ran looked at Yi Wanwan blankly. Yi Wanwan laughed lightly. Do you remember what I promised you before? Jiang Yan Ran instinctively recalled what Yi Wanwan said to her by the lake. She said, Big Missy Jiang, do you want Song Zihang to fall madly in love with you? Want to reveal Shen Mengqi's true colors in front of everyone and ruin her reputation? Want to let Song Zihang see Shen Mengqi's true colors and regret not choosing you before? It was these words that kept her going when she was at her lowest point. She wasn't sure what Yi Wanwan was planning, but she knew that she'd definitely deliver on her promise. At this moment, Mrs. Song was tugging at Shen Mengqi's hair and yelling at her in fury. Song Zihang tried his best to protect her and glared at Jiang Yan Ran with deep hatred. Jiang Yan Ran, I've lost my reputation thanks to you. Are you happy? Are you satisfied now? Shen Mengqi was choked with tears. Yan Ran, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Mengqi, you did nothing wrong. Don't apologize to this evil woman. It's my fault for not protecting you better. I should be glad that I saw this woman's true colors before it was too late. Yi Wanwan watched by the side in admiration. Under these circumstances, Shen Mengqi was still able to count on her lies and acting skills to reverse a hopeless situation, regaining her innocent persona. Song Zihang, who'd been used from the beginning and took all the blame at this critical moment, still defended her and spoke up for her voluntarily. Mom, I'd rather die than apologize to this flirt. I'll love only Shen Mengqi in this lifetime. Shen Mengqi's tears triggered the burning anger in Song Zihang's heart. As a proud man, he'd never apologize to Jiang Yan Ran in front of the woman he loved, no matter what. Just as Song Zihang was protecting his sweetheart with self-righteousness and everybody felt touched, a boy rushed over suddenly and pushed Song Zihang aside, embracing Shen Mengqi in his arms. Song Zihang, you're a bastard. You're spouting nonsense. Meng Qi's my woman. She has nothing to do with you. You're a perverted scumbag, shamelessly harassing Meng Qi all the time. Song Ziheng felt dizzy from the push, and when he saw Shin Meng Qi in the other boy's arms, he was enraged. I've been harassing Meng Qi? Bastard! Who do you think you are? Let go of her. Zheng Bin refused to let her go and replied loftily, Me? I'm the person whom Meng Qi truly loves. Zheng Bin, why are you here? Shen Meng Qi was flustered. Her gut feeling told her something wasn't right and she tried to send him away. It's none of your business, get going. Chapter 165. Refusing to give up, Zheng Bin saw Shen Meng Qi's tear-stained face and became even more protective, refusing to leave. I'm not going back. If I hadn't come, you'd be bullied to the death. I have to expose the true colors of this scumbag to everyone. The two guys were so aggravated, like a pair of roosters fighting. They were both unwilling to step back, and Shin Meng Qi was completely unable to stop them. She could only watch as they fought in front of everybody. Song Ziheng yelled, Tell me, what do you mean by my true colors? Zheng Bin didn't want to be outdone, so he retorted, You're a toad lusting after a swan. You knew Meng Qi had a boyfriend, but you keep harassing her. What a joke. Meng Qi's my girlfriend. How could I harass her? Are you insane? Meng Qi's boyfriend? Don't tell me you're talking about yourself. Song Ziheng sneered without a care for Zheng Bin's words. He simply treated him as one of Meng Qi's suitors who had come over to cause trouble out of jealousy. Zheng Bin blurted in a fit of rage, Yesterday, Meng Qi and I even spoke on the phone the entire night, and she told me herself that you were harassing her. Shen Meng Qi's heart thumped and she quickly interrupted, Stop fighting. There has to be some misunderstanding. Can we talk about this in private? Stop making a show for everyone to see. All right? Shen Meng Qi tried to persuade the two of them anxiously. Upon seeing Shin Meng Qi's pleading gaze, Song Ziheng and Zheng Bin hesitated. Not far off, Yuanwan narrowed her eyes. If she gave Shin Meng Qi some breathing space today, she was sure that Shin Meng Qi would be able to appease these two guys very quickly. Thus, Yuanwan rushed out and pointed towards Song Ziheng, burning with indignation, and scolded him. Well done, Song Ziheng. I thought you were true to Meng Qi, but who knew that you've been harassing and forcing her to be with you? How could you do that? Do you think you're worthy of Yen Ran, worthy of Meng Qi? You're an ass-hit asterisk. Song Ziheng was aggravated again with Yuanwan annoying him. Ugly freak, get out of my way. Don't try to act all smart in front of me. I've said it before, I didn't force Meng Qi to do anything. You can ask her if you don't believe me. Shen Meng Qi was so angry that she started to feel faint. She shot a look at Yuanwan and really wanted to kill her. On the other side, Zheng Bin's fury arose as well. Song Ziheng. I guess you're not going to give up until you see the grave. You had Jiang Yanran on one hand and secretly hooked up with Meng Qi on the other. Meng Qi didn't embarrass you on the spot only because you were her classmate and also out of respect for Jiang Yanran. In the end, you took advantage of her kindness and harassed her every single day. Let me tell you, you don't have to ask Meng Qi. Listen to this yourself. Zheng Bin brought his phone out and tapped a few times. Suddenly, a conversation between a guy and a girl played on his phone. Meng Qi, what's going on between you and Song Ziheng? This was Zheng Bin's voice. I've already said that I have nothing to do with him at all. He's the guy that Yen Ran likes. How could I be with him? It's just that he keeps harassing me and I can't do anything about it. This familiar voice was obviously Shin Meng Qi's. Let's go public with our relationship then. Tell him and everyone else that I'm your boyfriend. He'll give up then. No way, we can't go public. My parents are against me dating. Then why don't you tell Song Ziheng that you have a boyfriend? You're not even treating me like your boyfriend. Chapter 166. Confrontation. Of course, I've told him before, but it was no use. How could you say that about me? If you don't believe me, then maybe we should just break up. I believe you. Meng Qi, don't be mad. I just hate that Song Ziheng keeps harassing you. He still wouldn't let go after finding out that you've got a boyfriend? This kind of person needs a beating. I'll see to that someday. Don't be rash. He's Yen Rant's crush after all, and I don't want to make a big thing of it. Anyway, so what if he keeps harassing me? You're the one I love. You're my boyfriend, not him. Don't be mad anymore, alright? Give me a kiss then. Following that was Shin Meng-chi and Zheng Bin's lovey-dovey talk, and Zheng Bin kept playing it out loud with pride. Turn it off. Turn it off now. Shen Meng-chi nearly went berserk when she heard the recording and screamed as she stared at Zheng Bin, "Why? Why did you record this?" Upon seeing Shen Meng-chi's reaction, Zheng Bin frowned and his face darkened. "Meng-chi, what's wrong? I can't let him bully you anymore. As for the recording, I've been recording every conversation we've had over the phone so I can hear your voice. I had to do this since you said that you want to focus on your studies so you can't go out on more dates with me." Shin Meng-chi stood there with her back stiffened. All she felt was the earth and sky spinning. She didn't dare to look at Song Zihang's face or the looks of all the witnesses. When Yi Wanwan heard the recording, it was as if she gained confidence and she marched to Song Zihang triumphantly. "Scumbag. What do you have to say now?" "I knew it, Meng-chi's such a nice and kind person. How could she be with you even after finding out that Yen Ran likes you?" "So it was you, scumbag, who was driving a wedge between them. Meng-chi has a boyfriend and you still wouldn't let her go. You have no sense of shame." After Song Zihang heard that recording, he stood there in a daze like he'd been struck by lightning, his face in total disbelief. And what Yi Wanwan just said jabbed him right in the heart. Song Zihang was so mad that he was shaking. His face contorted in anger and his fury reached its peak. He gritted his teeth, his intense gaze directed at Shen Meng-chi. "Shen Meng-chi, I've been harassing you? I've forced you? I'm shameless? When we were at the theme park before, who was the one who said she had feelings for me all along? Who was the one who said that her heart broke each time she saw me with Yen Ran? Who was the one who promised me that she'd be with me after we graduate? Who was the one who made the move to kiss me? Damn it, since when have I ever forced you to do anything? Also, this guy. What's going on between you and him? You already accepted my confession the other day, but you were still on the phone with him last night? And you said he's your boyfriend? What about me then? What am I?" Song Zihang tossed out a huge stack of photos from his bag and threw it at Shen Meng-chi's face. Every single one was intimate photos of the two of them. Shen Meng-chi looked very sweet and didn't look like she was being forced at all. Song Zihang grabbed Shen Meng-chi's wrist. There was a silver ring on her finger and it was a couple ring matching the one on his finger. Forced? Her ring, her necklace and this entire outfit. I paid for all of it. Zheng Bin was dumbfounded. This is impossible. I've been with Meng-chi for half a year. Following that, the two of them kept quarreling, going back and forth with each other, thoroughly unmasking Shin Meng-chi's cover. Chapter 167. Capsized. Shin Meng-chi had managed her relationships well. After Song Zihang's confession, she didn't reply to him on the spot and only acknowledged their relationship in private but denied it completely in front of Zheng Bin, claiming that Song Zihang was harassing her. Shen Meng-chi thought that she could fool everyone. Who knew that the two of them would bump into each other? When the two of them met, they confronted each other and were initially fooled by her acting, but her lies were now exposed. At this moment, the crowd watched as the two people fought. The information Song Zihang and Zheng Bin disclosed got more and more shocking, and the onlookers were flabbergasted. Damn, what a plot twist. So it was Shen Meng-chi who was seducing Song Zihang. And now there's Zheng Bin involved. Oh my god. Was she two-timing? Shen Meng-chi actually had the both of them fooled. What do you mean the both of them? She stole her best friend's boyfriend, two-timed and told endless lies. We were all fooled. Zihang, that's enough. Aren't you embarrassed enough? You caused our Song family and yourself to be in this predicament just for this bitch? You, Mrs. Song gave her precious son a slap. Mrs. Song then grabbed Shin Meng-chi and slapped her twice, on her left and right cheeks. Wretch, how dare you seduce a Song? Song Zihang stood there, battered out of his senses as his cheeks burned. He was speechless and didn't react even when his mom slapped Shin Meng-chi. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that the girl he'd always liked was this kind of person, toying with his feelings all this time and even dating another guy while she was cuddling with him. As for him, in order to protect her reputation from being ruined, he was made a total fool. You bitch! How dare you lie to me? You actually dared to lie to me. It was as if Song Zihang was suddenly awakened and he charged towards Shen Mengqi like a madman. Hear me out. Shen Mengqi was knocked out of breath from his tight grip and shouted in fear, Zhengbin! Zhengbin, help me! Why would Zhengbin save her? It was a blessing that he didn't join in and kick her. He was so angry that his eyes were red. Shen Mengqi! You're good, just because I couldn't give you what you wanted. I couldn't help you become a big star. You went to find another man, and even kept me in the dark this whole time. I thought I was your true love and didn't dare to keep you from your studies. I didn't dare to tell anybody about our relationship, but you used me as a spare tire. Other than Song Zihang, who else do you have in your trap? How many other guys were you cheating on? Hearing Zheng Bin's bellow of rage, everybody clicked their tongues in disapproval and looked at Shen Mengqi's disheveled hair and battered face without any sympathy for her. She deserves it. The boats finally capsized this time when... How could you not get your shoes wet if you keep walking by the river? What an eye-opener today. Innocent goddess of Qing, he my ass. More like a scheming woman, a vixen. I didn't. It's not like that. Shen Mengqi slumped onto the floor and shook her head vigorously, the comments around her cutting her like a knife. All along, she was a good student in everyone's eyes and a goddess in every guy's heart. She had never received such menacing glares and horrible insults in her entire life. Her mind was in a blur. She had no idea how things ended up this way and how she got into this state. Chapter 168. Daddy Jiang to the rescue. Yi Wanwan stood a few steps away and watched as Shen Mengqi slumped onto the floor. After some time, she slowly walked over with a face filled with heartache and said softly, Mengqi, how could this happen? How could you do something like that? What about my brother? Did you also ditch him because he was no longer useful to you? Or, is my brother still a spare tire because he still has some use for you? Hearing this, Shen Mengqi suddenly seemed to wake up. She didn't expect that Yi Wanwan could speak right to her heart. She immediately explained anxiously, I didn't. Wan, you have to believe me. This was all a misunderstanding. How could I do this to Mu Fanyuan? I really wanted to help him. Seeing that Shen Mengqi still acted so fake when there was irrefutable evidence made everybody despise her even more. At this time, only the ugly freak, Yi Wanwan, is still listening to Shen Mengqi's fake honeyed words. So it really was Shen Mengqi's strategy all along, seducing whoever was powerful, and when something went amiss, she'd find a spare tire immediately. Not far off, Jiang Yanran was speechless as she watched how Yi Wanwan forced Shen Mengqi into this pathetic state single-handedly. Shen Mengqi was acting totally clueless and trying to explain things to Yi Wan, looking really anxious. At this moment, Song Zihang pushed Shen Mengqi away and rushed over to Jiang Yanran in tears. Yanran, please forgive me. I didn't know. I didn't know things would end up this way. That woman tricked me. I really didn't expect she would be so scheming, shamelessly seducing me from the start. Please forgive me this once. At this moment, Mrs. Song was in a rage. Song Zihang had actually been fooled by a little wretch, bringing embarrassment to the Song family. Yanran, you saw it too. It was all because of this bitch who seduced Zihang. Can you forgive him this time for Auntie's sake? Which man hasn't made mistakes before? I've beaten and scolded him and he'll never dare do it ever again and will be with you happily. Go back and explain this to your dad. We can't let the issue with the company drag on. This dismissive tone of Mrs. Song made Jiang Yanran frown. She pressed her lips together and replied, Auntie Song, I'm sorry, I can't make decisions for the company. As for the engagement, it was exactly like what Zihang said before. It was just a joke by the elders. I just didn't see it clearly before. Upon seeing Jiang Yanran's stubbornness, Mrs. Song's face turned gloomy. Yanran, do you really want to be so ruthless? Zihang and I have already apologized to you, but you're still so relentless. Do you want to ruin this long-term relationship between our families over this small issue? The moment Mrs. Song spoke, an angry voice resounded from the opposite side. Yen Ran, what happened to your face? Jiang Haichao rushed over anxiously, and behind him was Song Zihang's father, Song Xiaowei. Seeing her dad, Jiang Yen Ran was a little surprised as she covered her red and swollen face with her hand. Daddy, why are you here? I'm fine. When Jiang Haichao saw that his beloved daughter, whom he spoiled from a young age and didn't even dare lay a finger on, had gotten slapped by someone, he couldn't contain his fury. Who hit you? Was it Qian Rulan? She actually dared to hit you? Mrs. Song didn't expect that Jiang Haichao would appear, and she grew anxious and quickly explained, Old Jiang, why did you come down here personally? This was a misunderstanding, I didn't do it on purpose. Actually, it was just a small issue from the start, we really didn't have to drag so many people into this. Jiang Haichao hugged his daughter and was in a towering rage. Tisk, small issue? My daughter was bullied by your son to the point where she wanted to commit suicide. Is this what you call a small issue? After Yen Ran's mom and I received the call that night, we rushed down to school immediately. If it wasn't for someone saving Yen Ran, we'd be looking at her dead body. You call this a small issue? So in your eyes, our Yen Ran's life is just a small issue. Qian Rulan, Song Xiaowei, do you really think the Jiangs are pushovers? Chapter 169. An idiot or two, Old Jiang, that wasn't what I meant. You said Yen Ran tried to commit suicide? I had no idea about this. Mrs. Song was shocked. Song Xiaowei's face changed. His face was dark as he looked at his wife and son, both of them unable to achieve anything but were great at sabotaging things. He had finally managed to meet Jiang Haichao today to find out what he did wrong. In the end, he learned it was his own son who betrayed Yen Ran first, making him lose all face in front of Jiang Haichao. He tried so hard to persuade Jiang Haichao to be more lenient, on account of the friendship between the two families in order to work together on the project. But then, Song Xiaowei suddenly received a call saying that his wife had gone to the school to stir up trouble. Song Xiaowei glared at his wife and son and could only summon up the courage to say, Old Jiang, I'm really sorry, Rulan and I were ignorant. If we'd known about this, we never would have let this bastard off. Jiang Haichao sneered, Ignorant? You guys were obviously ignorant. I recently found out my daughter helped your son get water, washed their clothes and delivered breakfast every day like a servant. Found out that your son cheated on Yen Ran right under her nose and embarrassed her. Found out that he helped another girl insult her. Found out that Yen Ran actually suffered so much. Let me tell you, Song Xiaowei, Qian Rulan, this isn't the end of it. Just wait for your bankruptcy. Jiang Haichao didn't bother with the Song family's explanation and left with his daughter immediately. After everybody found out the truth from Jiang Haichao, they started criticizing the three of them with spiteful stares. That's too ungrateful of them, how could there be such a shameless family? At the school entrance, Jiang Yen Ran had to pacify her father for a long time before she finally managed to calm him down. Once calm, she sent him back home. You called my dad? Jiang Yen Ran asked. Yi Wanwan nodded, just in case. It was safer to have a backup. Thank you, Jiang Yen Ran replied gratefully. She always has a well-thought-out plan. Don't mention it, I did it for myself too, Yi Wanwan replied. Jiang Yen Ran said, even if Shen Mengqi tries to talk her way out this time, nobody will believe her anymore. Yi Wanwan pinched her eyebrows like she had a headache. There'll always be an idiot or two who'll believe her. Are you saying, Senior Yi? Jiang Yen Ran asked in concern. Yi Wanwan didn't comment. After all, the IQ of a person in love is in the negative, she knew this very well herself. In her previous life, her brother was still very devoted to Shen Mengqi even after witnessing her flirting with another guy. He even felt useless for not being able to protect the girl he loved. She already knew how hard it would be to brainwash him. After all, you and Senior Yi are blood siblings. Just talk to him nicely, he'll definitely be on your side, Jiang Yen Ran reassured her. Yi Wanwan took a deep breath and looked at the time on her phone. No worries, since I exposed Shen Mengqi once, I can expose her again. Don't worry about me. You should head back and have a good rest or find someplace to relax. Alright, do you have any plans later? Jiang Yanran asked. Today's Saturday, I have to go over to my boyfriend's grandmother's place to have dinner. Give me a call if you need anything. Sure. After she parted with Jiang Yanran, Yi Wanwan returned to the dorm to get changed and removed her makeup. Then she left through the back door. The familiar black car was already waiting for her at the same place as always. Chapter 170. Pouncing on the great devil. Yi Wanwan's long hair was straight like a waterfall and she wore a white dress. She patted her face gently and went into the state of a little innocent white rabbit. When she approached the car, the door of the driver's seat opened and Su-yi quickly got out, opening the door of the back seat for her. At the same time, he couldn't help but stare at her. Although this wasn't the first time he saw her like that, it amazed him every single time. In the back seat, Si-han was busy. He had his laptop out in front of him and a Bluetooth headset on, seemingly in a video conference. She was unsure whether it was because the conference wasn't going smoothly, but Si-han didn't look too good. His forehead had a trace of faint anger and the surrounding atmosphere felt dangerous. Yi Wanwan obviously didn't dare to provoke him. She sat in the corner seat obediently and tried to minimize her presence. When she looked up inadvertently, she suddenly noticed that aside from Su-yi, there was a teenager sitting in the front passenger seat. As usual, the teenager was in an all-black outfit. He had short, neat hair and his expression was stern and sharp, like a weapon. He was the most formidable expert under Si-han, Lu Ying, the person she met in Jean Garden. When Yi Wanwan looked up, she met Lu Ying's gaze in the rearview mirror. He had the same contemptuous and disdainful look as usual. As for his gaze, Yi Wanwan was already used to it. All the subordinates under Si-han viewed her as a bewitching demon, similar to Bao Si and De Ji, who were infamous concubines who caused damage and suffering to the people in China. The only difference from her previous life was that in this life, she returned to her original appearance, which was more in line with her title of a troublemaking beauty and also attracted more hatred. Although she was already accustomed to it, she didn't want to accept these stares like she'd done in her previous life. She really hated the way this guy looked at her. He must be having so much fun calling me a vixen and witch in his heart, right? Damn it, your master is obviously the one fighting over me, alright? Don't be so unreasonable. If she didn't prove his accusation to be true, wouldn't that be a waste? Yi Wanwan glanced at Si-han. His face was cold while speaking to his senior management on the screen. She didn't understand everything that came out from his lips. Lu Ying noticed that she kept looking at Si-han and his gaze became more alert and spiteful. The corners of Yi Wanwan's lips turned upwards. In the next second, she suddenly pounced onto Si-han. Si-han was caught off guard and got knocked over. He frowned and was about to speak, but was quickly covered by a soft sweetness. Si-han was obviously stunned. His obscure eyes turned deep almost instantaneously, like a giant whirlpool. His long, slender fingers then quickly closed the laptop shut and cut off the screen of the other party. In the video conference, the senior management on the other end was initially focused on the meeting, but then, suddenly a beauty appeared on the screen and it seemed like she'd pounced on their boss. When they tried to have a closer look, the screen turned black. Damn, woman? A woman actually pounced on the boss just now, in the middle of a meeting. At the same time, there was something darker than the screen, Lu Ying's face. His eyes were as wide as an ox's bell. His cheeks were flushed and his whole face was in disbelief. He was on the verge of exploding. He was actually flabbergasted by the shameless behavior of Yi Wanwan. Even though Su-yi had seen this many times before, he still felt awkward every time and quickly pulled up the divider, cutting off the scene at the back. Yi Wanwan shot a look from the corner of her eye to Lu Ying's black face. She felt slightly appeased. However, after she let off some steam, she realized she had a bigger problem. Yi Wanwan blinked her eyes stiffly and looked at the great devil she pounced on. Her impulsive decision. She must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's gall to possess the courage. How did she have the guts to pounce on Si-han? Chapter 171. Dignity. At that moment, Yi Wanwan broke out in a cold sweat. This time, she had truly only hurt her enemy 800 times but hurt herself by 1,000. There was nothing that could be done right now. She already pounced on him and could only keep going from there. Yi Wanwan laid on his chest like a neglected concubine and whined, "I've been here for so long but you don't even care. What's so good about watching this? You've been looking at this the whole time. Is it better looking than I am? Who's better looking, me or this thing?" These were truly the words of a troublemaking beauty. The divider was able to block the visuals but not the sounds in the car. Lu Ying would probably be pissed to death when he heard that. It was almost as if she could hear the gritting of teeth from the front. In fact, Yi Wanwan was right. Lu Ying had already unsheathed the sword that he usually brought with him, this demonic woman. Even the words he bellowed were exactly the same as Yi Wanwan imagined. Su Yi quickly stopped him, lowered his voice and said nervously, "Keep it down. It's not your first day knowing about this. Why are you still so rash? What if Master hears you? Do you want to die?" The teenager next to Su Yi was so mad that his hair was almost on fire. How could he swallow this down? This woman's been so weird lately. She obviously has bad intentions. Why is Master so blind, not putting his guard up against her? Su Yi hurriedly reassured him, "She's just a little silly girl. How much harm can she do? Don't worry." Lu Ying scoffed, "Diske, what can she do? She did that on purpose just now. She did it on purpose for me to see. She's driving a wedge between Ninth Master and me." "What on earth do you mean by that? Don't make her sound like your love rival, alright? In any case, just stay calm. Even if she's a demon, do you think our master is a fool? What kind of person do you think he is?" Sui said. Hearing this, Lu Ying's anger slowly dissipated. After all, Si Han was a perfect god in his heart. How could he be a fool? However, the moment Su Yi finished speaking, the two of them heard the master's hoarse and low voice coming from the back. "You're better looking." Lu Ying, Yi Wanwan didn't stop there, probably because she saw that Si Han wasn't mad, so she gathered her courage again. Yi Wanwan shot a look towards the front of the car and continued questioning Si Han. "Then what if one day Lu Ying and I fell into a river, who would you save first?" Lu Ying, Su Yi. What kind of question was that? I've got to kowtow to Yi Wanwan for her courage. I didn't think this woman would be scarier when she's submissive to the master than when she's disobedient and causing trouble. The atmosphere was stagnant. After some silence, the man's voice finally traveled to the front. "Save you. Lu Ying, where's my knife?" Su Yi. At this moment, Lu Ying's expression was akin to a whiny wife, and Su Yi could almost see the black cloud of resentment emanating from the top of his head. Afraid that Lu Ying would lose control and butcher Yi Wanwan, Su Yi persuaded him urgently, "Lu Ying, put your knife down, please calm down. The master still loves you. Master said that purely because you can swim and don't need his help at all. Let's not stoop to the level of that little demon. We must have dignity. Have some dignity." Su Yi was busy trying to talk him out of it, but suddenly he realized that his tone was a little weird, like he's persuading a jealous lover. Chapter 172. I'm just pure and innocent, hee hee. Upon hearing Si Han choosing her without any hesitation, Yi Wanwan felt appeased and satisfied. Si Han grabbed her waist to prevent her from falling and spoke softly into her ear, "Are you done messing around? Did I just get caught for making trouble?" Yi Wanwan whined meekly, "Who asked Lu Ying to look at me like I'm a troublemaking vixen? I'm so pure and innocent, pure and innocent." Si Han's gaze swept over her. Did she just say she's pure and innocent? Yi Wanwan coughed lightly, feeling slightly abashed. She then pouted, "He doesn't like me, I hate him." "Don't provoke him." A tinge of warning lingered in Si Han's tone. Yi Wanwan gave a pained expression, "You're being totally biased." Si Han slowly looked at her with his cold eyes. "I am, in fact, biased." Yi Wanwan, Fine. I'll admit that Si Han already gave me face and has been very giving to me. Anyway, it's an eye for an eye. If he glares at me again, I'm going to hurt his master. To anger him to death." Yi Wanwan said. Si Han, As Lu Ying's master, Si Han never expected to get dragged into Lu Ying's troubles for just being an innocent bystander. Should I give Lu Ying a raise then? Shortly, the car arrived at the old house. When they got out, Yi Wanwan met Lu Ying's gaze. As expected, his eyes were filled with a cold, murderous intent. Yi Wanwan knew that a feud had been forged today. But so what? There's a perfect gem, Qin Ruoxi, in front of him anyway, so no matter what I do, that guy will never like me. I'm a troublemaker and a pampered princess, so what? In her previous life, she was most afraid of Si Han. But aside from him, she was also terrified of these two killing machines by his side. Each time he looked at her with his icy glare, she felt as if her flesh was being sliced into. She was also warned and threatened every 2 to 3 days and was surrounded by guards like she was a thief. Even after being in Jin Garden for so many years, even when Si Han gave her the best of everything, she never felt like she belonged. All the wrongs she'd suffered quietly all those years, she had to get revenge for all of them in this life. Since I can't go back to being an innocent teenager anymore, what's the harm in acting like a demon this time around? After they entered, the old lady saw that both Yi Wanwan and Si Han had arrived and a big smile spread across her face. You're back. Si Han. The old lady looked at her precious grandson grumpily, then pulled Yi Wanwan to her warmly. Well, come over quickly. Let Grandma take a look at you. Grandma! Yi Wanwan called out to her sweetly. It was no wonder that the old lady had a good impression of her. Other than the fact that she didn't make any mistakes this time around, Yi Wanwan's look was very pleasing. Both her appearance and temperament were very likable. She looked very gentle and obedient, simple and innocent, inciting people to let their guard down instinctively and dote on her. Not bad, thankfully you didn't become skinnier, it looks like you've gained some weight. You're still too skinny, you have to eat more. The old madam pulled her in and scanned her up and down, nodding approvingly. Yi Wanwan was really too skinny before, like she could be blown away by the wind. Recently, she managed to get some nourishment, but as a whole, she was still a little skinny. But with her appetite now, there was no doubt that she'd be fattened up in no time. Also, if she kept binging, she might even return to being as fat as before. Got it, Grandma. I'll eat more. Good girl. Oh, right, Grandma almost forgot. Come, Grandma wants you to meet someone. The old madam brought her into the house with a wide smile on her face. Chapter 173. Finally, they meet again. She wants me to meet someone? Someone whom the old madam wants to introduce me to specifically. Who could it be? Yi Wanwan stayed by the old madam's side with a look of suspicion. They walked past the living room and entered the lawn. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared before her eyes without warning. All she saw was in front of a few precious peony trees, stood a tall and slender silhouette. The girl had curly chestnut-colored hair. She wore a casual camel coat and didn't look very stunning, yet was elegant and graceful. Every movement revealed grandeur and classiness that only a true aristocrat could exude. Even with the girl's elegance, the grimness between her brows matched up to a man's. This was Imperial City's #1 goddess Qin Ruoxi. She finally got to meet her again after such a long time following her rebirth. The moment Yi Wanwan saw who it was, her pupils constricted and her instincts heightened her vigilance and guard as if she saw her arch-enemy. This is my grandniece, Qin Ruoxi. She's little 9H's good friend as well. The old madam introduced her with an incredible pride and arrogance. Yi Wanwan's brain managed to cool down slightly as countless memories came flooding back. Si Han's late grandfather had a sworn brother called Qin Bingsong. Qin Ruoxi was Qin Bingsong's granddaughter. Qin Ruoxi wasn't simply little 9Th's friend, like how the old madam described. She was Si Han's right-hand person, someone at his side who was irreplaceable. Whether in the company, family, or secret service, Qin Ruoxi was very highly regarded. Almost everyone saw her as the future mistress of the household. However, the person whom Si Han wanted to marry previously was Yi Wanwan, not Qin Ruoxi. Although Si Han was scary, women were still attracted to him since he was gentle at times. She was quite moved when he ignored all the objections to marry her and gave her the status of Mrs. C. In her previous life, she'd thought about the marriage deeply. Since she couldn't change anything, she thought she should just compromise and live with the title. But the reality of it made her heart grow bitterly cold, over and over again. Judging by Qin Ruoxi's abilities, she wouldn't hurt her directly because these lowly methods would only anger Si Yihan. She only needed to speak a few words and there would be numerous people willing to get their hands dirty for her. Lu Ying was one of those people. Moreover, the mere presence of this woman was enough to force her into the corner and steal her thunder. To Yi Wan, it wasn't the physical torture that was the scariest, but the psychological torture. If Si Yihan took away her freedom, this woman destroyed her personality and sense of self to the point that even if she occupied the glorified seat of Mrs. C, she lived like a canary, a puppet without any beliefs of her own. Yi Wanwan quickly suppressed the surging current beneath her eyes and greeted her like normal. "Nice to meet you, Miss Qin." The corners of Qin Ruoxi's lips curled upwards like it was the perfect timing. "Call me Ruoxi." "So you're the Wanwan who Grandma's been talking about. You're just as pretty as she described. Yihan's really lucky. This is the first time we're meeting, so here's a little gift." Following that, a servant brought a delicate little box over. It was a pair of jade bracelets. Crystal clear, full-colored, glass jade. The current market price for this was about 8 million and its appreciation would be quite considerable in the future. She clearly knew that Yi Wanwan was Si Yihan's girlfriend and Si Yihan had even brought her to meet Grandma already. There was no way Qin Ruoxi didn't understand the meaning of all this. However, her attitude from the beginning didn't show an ounce of jealousy at all. This should be the kind of tolerance that a real wife must have. Chapter 174. Embrace the golden thigh. "Thank you, Ruoxi. The bangle is beautiful." Yi Wanwan closed the box and acted like she didn't understand the value of it. "As long as you like it." After Qin Ruoxi was done with her, she turned to Si Yihan. When she looked at Si Yihan, her initial formal and cold attitude was suddenly much warmer and her gaze turned gentler as well. "Yihan, I've settled the issue over at Shin City. I'll talk over the details with you tonight." "Thanks," Si Yihan said indifferently, as he retracted his gaze from Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan's expression was strange when she looked at Qin Ruoxi just now. "Are you just saying that or are you really grateful?" Qin Ruoxi raised her brows. Si Yihan glanced at Su Yi and he immediately brought out what he'd prepared beforehand, a bottle of exquisite wine. Qin Ruoxi's eyes lit up when she saw it, the liquor that seventh brother fermented himself. "I tried bargaining for it with an ancient medical scroll that was out of print and he refused." "How'd you get it?" "Su Yi got it." "You bullied Su Yi again, always getting him to do these challenging tasks." Yi Wanwan stood silently next to Si Yihan and watched as the two of them chatted away happily, closed off from all other people, including herself. At this moment, Lu Ying's excited voice came from the door. "Ms. Ruoxi, when did you arrive?" Lu Ying's eyes brightened the moment he saw Qin Ruoxi like his pillar of support had arrived. Qin Ruoxi smiled. "Not too long ago. I heard that you've recently learned a boxing skill? Can you practice with me?" "Sure." Lu Ying nodded instantly. This mischievous monkey, finding someone to spar with the moment she's back, not womanly at all. The old madam complained with an annoyed expression, but it was obvious that her loving tone held no blame at all. The old madam must be disappointed with Si Yihan's choice to choose me, a girl who appeared out of nowhere, instead of Qin Ruoxi. But it was better for Si Yihan to be attached to someone, whoever it was, good or bad, over being single for years without being close to any woman at all. The old madam headed back to the kitchen. Yi Wanwan followed Si Yihan and sat down near the wooden table under the pergola. Qin Ruoxi had removed her coat and started sparring with Lu Ying. Yi Wanwan slumped down on her chair and watched the reckless and confident figures of the two sparring. During this first meeting, Qin Ruoxi had given her a show of her strength. From Si Yihan to the old madam, to Su Yi and Lu Ying, she was showing her sovereignty and letting Yi Wanwan know that there was no place for her by Si Yihan's side. It was like that in her previous life as well. Qin Ruoxi didn't do any real harm to her but forced her to feel despair. In Si Yihan's world, she'd been all alone, isolated and without help. However, it was also because she was too foolish in her previous life. So what if Qin Ruoshi bribed everyone around Si Han? Yi Wanwan only needed to grab hold of one person and she'd be invincible. Yi Wanwan propped her chin on her hand, looked at the golden thigh glistening next to her and murmured softly, Si Han, I want to eat some melon seeds. Si Han felt something was amiss about Yi Wanwan just now, but before he could figure it out, it was gone. He had started to size her up, but once he saw her acting coquettishly with her beautiful little face and a sweet smile, that nagging feeling seemed to just be his misperception. Yi Wanwan shook his arm. My arm hurts from all the homework I've done recently. Could you peel them for me, please? Chapter 175. Please feed me. People who practice martial arts have pretty good hearing, and Lu Ying was no exception. Although he was sparring with Qin Ruosu, he heard Yi Wanwan's words loud and clear. His moves suddenly messed up, and the anger that he'd suppressed previously finally boiled over. How dare she? She actually wants the master to do something like that? Qin Ruoshi stopped him without batting an eyelid. Lu Ying, don't be rash. Lu Ying said angrily, Ms. Ruoshi, even you are trying to stop me? I've had enough today. How could you not be angry at all? Qin Ruoshi looked distant and replied calmly, with Yi Han's status, it's perfectly normal for him to have a few women by his side. But this woman is different. Lu Ying rebutted anxiously. Qin Ruoshi's expression turned cold when she heard him, but she quickly regained her calmness. How is she different? Lu Ying, remember this, she's not different at all. You don't have to take so much offense. Lu Ying wanted to speak but kept silent in the end, though his heart wasn't entirely at peace. How is she normal? The master actually peeled melon seeds for her. He peeled 78 of them. How could his delicate hands be used to peel melon seeds? Most importantly, there has never been a woman by master's side, but this good-for-nothing, immoral and trouble-causing woman was able to stay by his side for 2 whole years. At first, he didn't care about this woman at all and only acted like the master found a playmate out of boredom. Who knew that the master would actually bring her to meet the old madam? The only person qualified enough for the master to introduce to the old madam was the future headmistress of the household. Why did the master bring this kind of woman to meet the old madam? Lu Ying was on the verge of exploding, but on the other side, Yi Wanwan was watching as Si Han peeled the melon seeds for her, one by one. Those slender fingers forced open each melon seed swiftly and the kernels fell into an exquisite little white porcelain bowl. As he peeled more and more, he looked more and more tempting. It couldn't be helped. Heaven can be so unfair sometimes. Some people can look so stunning just by peeling melon seeds. Although she had no choice but to use him to survive, Yi Wanwan also felt that she was enjoying herself. With this thought, everything seemed balanced. Sensing her stare, Si Han stopped what he was doing and lifted his head. He was met with the searing gaze of the girl. Her pupils were glistening with, "Please feed me," written all over them. After seeing her fearful, indifferent, hateful expressions and considering the way she had shunned him for so long, her current expression was too moving and it tempted him. Yi Wanwan was staring at the hands peeling the melon seeds at first, but when she noticed that they stopped moving, she looked up, unsatisfied. Why did he stop? There's not enough yet. Without waiting for Yi Wanwan to speak, a shadow was cast over her head and his thin lips slowly landed on hers with a tinge of warmth. Yi Wanwan's eyes were wide open. She blinked and blinked, unsure what just happened. At this moment, he said in a low voice with his lips close to hers, "Who allowed you to look at me this way? Yi Wanwan, what did I do? What's wrong with my gaze? I just wanted to have some melon seeds, that's all." Chapter 176, Captivated by Your Sex Appeal. In the next second, a bang resounded not far away. Yi Wanwan saw the cracks in the wall next to Lu Ying clearly. He clenched his fist tightly and glared in Yi Wanwan's direction. Then, without regard to Qin Ruoshi's reaction, he turned on his heels and walked away. He just left in a huff. Yi Wanwan. Actually, all she really wanted was to eat some melon seeds. Speaking of which, it was no wonder that Qin Ruoshi was able to reach her lofty position in the family. Even after witnessing Si Han getting intimate with her, she still maintained her composure and was consoling Lu Ying instead. This kind of woman who was beautiful both inside and out, who was skilled in using both the pen and the rifle and wasn't easily jealous, was simply perfect. Even she thought that Si Han was blind, not to mention his henchmen and followers. Then she felt a sharp pain on her lips and Yi Wanwan changed her line of thought. Ouch, what were you thinking about? The man asked unhappily when he noticed that she was distracted. Do you even need to ask? Your little Lu Ying was so mad that he nearly crushed a wall, didn't you see? Yi Wanwan sighed silently in her heart and muttered, I'm thinking whether there's something wrong with your taste in women. Si Han narrowed his eyes and replied casually, Tell me, what's wrong? Yi Wanwan thought about it, plucked up her courage and replied, Why don't you pick a woman who's beautiful both inside and out, skilled in using both the pen and the rifle, graceful in the hall and skilled in the kitchen? Instead, you chose a troublemaker who doesn't follow the rules and causes chaos. When Si Han heard that, he looked deeply at her. Just as Yi Wanwan's heart was getting petrified by his stare, she finally heard his casual reply with just 5 words, captivated by your sex appeal. Yi Wanwan almost choked. This doesn't seem characteristic of a ruler, right? Who said I'm a ruler? Yi Wanwan was speechless. During dinner, Si Han was silent as usual. Qin Ruoshi chatted away with the old madam about some funny incidents and made her laugh as if nothing had happened. It was obvious that Qin Ruoshi was aware of the old madam's importance. Yi Wanwan knew very well that the fondness the old madam had for her was only on a surface level. The moment Qin Ruoshi returned, the good impression that she had with the old madam previously had dissipated. She was already prepared for this. Qin Ruoshi's place in the Si family was deep-rooted. It wasn't something that she was able to shake in a short period of time. After dinner, Yi Wanwan took out her homework and started working on the desk. Si Han had a document in his hands and flipped through it on the sofa nearby. There was a knock on the door and Qin Ruoshi walked in, probably to report about work. Yi Han, about Shen City. Qin Ruoshi was about to continue when she glanced at Yi Wanwan doing her homework. It was obvious with such confidential matters that Yi Wanwan should leave. Yi Wanwan was about to pack up and leave when Si Han placed the document down and looked up. Then he turned to Qin Ruoshi and said one word, sit. He didn't intend for Yi Wanwan to leave at all. Yi Wanwan slowly raised her head and looked towards the 2 people sitting opposite, her heart beating faster. Actually, she wished that Si Han would allow her to leave. She didn't want to know anything about these confidential matters. Chapter 177. The way a fatuous ruler acts, however. Just like before, Si Han didn't hide anything from her. Such confidential and even top-secret things. His bedroom, his most important study, and his darkroom were all brazenly spread out in front of her. But she could understand why. Would anybody be guarded against their own pet cat, dog, or bird? Obviously not. Qin Ruoshi glanced at Yi Wanwan, was silent for a moment and in the end, didn't say anything at all. Then she started reporting the details to Si Han. In the quiet study, there was only the clear voice of Qin Ruoshi and a few words from Si Han occasionally. Yi Wanwan left those 2 alone and started doing her homework. With her math homework piled up like a mountain, she didn't have time to think about anything else. Suddenly, a loud dong interrupted the silence. Qin Ruoshi and Si Han raised their heads and looked towards Yi Wanwan. They saw that Yi Wanwan's head was on the table, with a worksheet sandwiched in between. She stared at that math worksheet with red and teary eyes, looking as if the paper had murdered her dad. After a moment of strange silence, Si Han pinched his brows and indicated for Qin Ruoshi to stop. He stood up and walked towards Yi Wanwan. Si Han walked to her side. Which question? Yi Wanwan was stunned as she forced her head up. Huh? Which question do you need help with? Si Han repeated and at the same time, stretched his fingers out and stroked her forehead with a frown. Yi Wanwan tilted her head and replied instinctively, question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5, question 6. Si Han took out the first aid kit from the cupboard, applied some medicine on her red and swollen forehead, then started explaining the questions to her. Upon seeing Si Han helping her with her homework, Yi Wanwan was dazed and somewhat surprised, but was captivated by Si Han's explanation very quickly. After 10 minutes, Yi Wanwan looked at Si Han with dazzling eyes, as if he had grown a pair of little white wings on his back. She never expected that after he explained those inexplicable formulas and questions that they'd become surprisingly easy. Very soon, half an hour passed. Qin Ruoxi, who was sitting on the sofa waiting in silence, finally spoke up. Yi Han. Si Han lifted his gaze from the paper and looked at Qin Ruoxi. You can head back first. Qin Ruoxi, who'd kept her composure all this while, had an uneasiness that appeared beneath her eyes after she heard him. But the issue with Shin City, I know what to do. Qin Ruoxi's expression turned gloomy at being interrupted. After a few seconds, she finally stood up. Got it? Qin Ruoxi left after she packed up her documents. Watching Qin Ruoxi leave, Yi Wanwan was quite surprised herself. What Qin Ruoxi said just now must have been very important. In fact, everything handled by Qin Ruoxi was important. But Si Han actually pushed this issue back just to help her with her homework? This was truly the way a fatuous ruler acts. When he noticed that she was distracted, Si Han rapped his fist on the table. Do you understand? Can you explain it again, please? Yi Wanwan quickly focused all her attention. Forget it, who cares what Si Han thinks? I'm still stressed over math. With such a rare opportunity today, I have to grab hold of it. Chapter 178. His master couldn't be horny, could he? Downstairs, Lu Ying crossed his arms and leaned against the door to the courtyard. He was still mad, but after he heard familiar footsteps behind him, he turned around, surprised. Ms. Ruoxi? Weren't you speaking to the master? You're already done? Qin Ruoxi's expression was hard to decipher and she shook her head. Not yet. Yi Han's busy, so he asked me to head back first. The master's busy? Did something happen? Lu Ying probed anxiously. If it was more important than the issue at Shin City, then it must be something big. Qin Ruoxi hurriedly replied, No, don't worry. Then what's the master busy with? We exterminated all the remaining forces in Shin City, everything's a mess and we're all awaiting his instructions. Seeing that Qin Ruoxi was hesitant in replying, Lu Ying could guess what happened and he bellowed furiously, Was it that vixen again? Ms. Ruoxi, you understand now? The master pushed aside such an important thing just for her. Also, in the car today, while the master was having a video conference, this woman shamelessly seduced him right in front of Su Yi and me. Most importantly, the master didn't scold her and even stopped the meeting for her. The image of Si Han tutoring that woman appeared in her head and a darkness flashed across Qin Ruoxi's eyes. Yi Han's a guy and this Ms. Ye's young and beautiful. It's normal for him to be captivated by her. Anyway, it doesn't matter now. Nobody's able to influence him when it comes to the big issues. Ms. Ruoxi, the master's already been influenced, all right? At a time like this, you're still speaking up for him. Lu Ying was furious. Even if Qin Ruoxi's words make sense, they only apply to normal men. How could master be as horny as those ordinary people? This is impossible. Qin Ruoxi looked at the teenager next to her helplessly. You get aggravated too easily. You can't be like that from now on. You should be wary that she might come between you and Si Han. For now, don't be so bothered by her. Lu Ying was indignant. I can't take it much longer. Other than a pretty face, that woman's useless, extremely stupid and doesn't even have the strength to handle a chicken. If this keeps up, even if she doesn't cause any trouble, she'll drag the master down sooner or later. She's not comparable to you at all, Ms. Ruoxi. Qin Ruoxi furrowed her brows and warned him sternly, Lu Ying, don't say these things in the future. She's one of Yi Han's people after all. Lu Ying's face darkened. She's not fit to be one of the master's people. This kind of person isn't even qualified to be on par with you. Upstairs, after Yi Wanwan finally grasped Si Han's methods, it was as if she found a treasure cove. Unknowingly, she had listened to Si Han's explanations for an entire night. Then, Jiang Yanran called. It's nearly midnight. Jiang Yanran should be asleep by now. Why would she call at this hour? Yi Wanwan anxiously answered the call. Jiang Yanran's cries came through the receiver. Yi Wanwan's face changed. Yanran? Are you crying? What happened? What should I do? I suddenly realized. I'm so useless. Why after seeing what kind of person he is? I'm still suffering. It's too hard to bear. Jiang Yanran sobbed intermittently and she sounded drunk as well. Yi Wanwan heaved a sigh of relief. You've been drinking? She thought that scumbag song had caused trouble again. Chapter 179. Becomes so strong that she could be his rival. Yup, I'm already 18, I'm allowed to drink. Jiang Yanran replied meekly like she was afraid that Yi Wanwan would scold her. Where are you right now? Yi Wanwan asked, concerned. By the lake. The little lake in school? Yup. Yi Wanwan's head started to hurt. You're so tipsy now, you might fall into the lake by accident. Hurry and head back to the dorms. What an honest kid. I just casually warned her to help her calm down, but she's actually listening to me. Huh? I'm lost. Yiwan. Oh, Big Missy, how could you get lost in your own school? Forget it, find somewhere and stay there. I'll get someone to fetch you. Yi Wanwan warned Jiang Yanran repeatedly, then gave Chu Feng a call, asking him to go to the little lake to look for Jiang Yanran before hanging up. After the call, Yi Wanwan turned to Si Yihan and said, That was Yanran, the new roommate I told you about before. She got drunk in school and now can't find her way back to the dorms, so I asked a boy from the neighboring school to find her. That guy has a crush on Jiang Yanran, he seems quite nice. The Si Yihan in her past life was extremely controlling, almost to the point where it was perverted. He investigated everybody around her. Even if his intention was to keep her safe, his behavior was still revolting to her. In her past life, the only way she tried to resist was to try to escape, but this time, she thought that if she became strong enough to protect herself, and even become Si Yihan's rival, maybe she could regain her freedom that way? Although the latter was still a fantasy for her at the moment. Yi Wanwan continued, It's so late already, I've got to go back. Though tomorrow's a weekend, our class has a rehearsal tomorrow morning, so I have to rush back. I'm also worried about Yan Ran being alone in the dorm. You should hurry and talk business with Ms. Ruoxi. Even though Si Yihan looked indifferent as usual and didn't say a word in response, Yi Wanwan could sense that he was unhappy. She really felt that Si Yihan's thoughts were harder to decipher than a woman's. Before, when she was messing around and making a scene over and over to provoke Lu Ying on purpose, he wasn't mad at all. But now when she's being sensible and caring for her friend, he's upset? Where's the logic? Fortunately, Si Han relented in the end and got Su Yi to send her back. As it was pretty late, the old madam was already asleep, so Yi Wanwan didn't want to disturb her and only informed the old housekeeper of her departure. In the living room, Qin Ruoxi was up waiting and hadn't gone to bed. When she saw Yi Wanwan coming downstairs to say goodbye, she was surprised. Ms. Yi, you're leaving. It's so late, why don't you stay over and sleep here? Lu Ying, who was off to the side, scoffed. How is she qualified to stay in the old house? Lu Ying hadn't finished his sentence but was forced to retreat by an icy glare shot at him. He shut his mouth in an instant. That glare seemed like nothing, but it was as if it brought an immense power, like a huge, heavy mountain had suddenly pressed down on his chest. Lu Ying hung his head low and his back broke out in a cold sweat. But after the scare, he became even more furious. After Yi Wanwan and Su Yi left, Si Han turned to the teenager. Lu Ying, come over. Lu Ying clenched his fists. Yes. Qin Ruoxi turned to the both of them, worried. Yi Han, don't blame Lu Ying, he didn't mean it, you know how he's like. Ms. Ruoxi, you don't have to speak up for me. Lu Ying followed Si Han into the study without a word. Chapter 180. Unparalleled. The study was dead silent. Si Han sat on the wide and simple antique chair and looked at the teenager standing upright in the middle of the living room. Lu Ying's face was filled with stubbornness and discontentment like a wild and unruly wolf cub. There was only one way to tame a person like him, and that was to be stronger than him. Otherwise, he'd never submit to you to his death. After some time, Si Han finally spoke. You have something to say about my taste in women? Lu Ying's eyes widened the moment he heard that question. Of course I do. I wouldn't dare, he mumbled. You wouldn't dare? Si Han's low voice brought a great sense of oppression. The teenager gritted his teeth. After holding back for so long, he couldn't take it any longer. Actually, I do have an opinion. Master, I don't understand why you'd choose a woman like Yi Wanwan. Then in your mind, what kind of woman do you think I should choose? Si Han asked in reply. Lu Ying answered without hesitation, of course someone who's beautiful both inside and out, and knowledgeable and skilled in martial arts. Only then would she be compatible with you. How could you be with a useless bum who needs your protection all the time and could bring you down anytime? I don't believe you're just one of those worldly men who only care about appearances. Being at his master's side for so long, he knew clearly how harsh his master's standards were. Everybody believed he didn't want to be close to women, but it was because ordinary women were unattractive to him and they were essentially from different planets. Furthermore, this person had to become his life partner. Beautiful both inside and out, knowledgeable and skilled in martial arts. Si Han paused and looked at the teenager. You mean I should marry you and Sui? Lu Ying. The moment Si Han said that, Lu Ying's brain crashed instantly and he was dumbfounded. Following that, his ears and neck were red as he contested, how's that possible? What I meant was, although Sui was in charge of the internal matters while he was in charge of the external ones, and he was a good fighter whereas Sui was very knowledgeable, and the two of them together did fit his criteria, he didn't mean it that way. Master's obviously taking it out of context. Who told you that my partner needs to have just these two criteria? Si Han asked softly. His icy cold gaze appeared as if he despised every living creature in the world. Immediately, Lu Ying sought his opinion earnestly. Then, Master, what do you think she should be like? He had never heard his own master mention his criteria for a spouse, so naturally he was very eager to find out. Lu Ying held his breath and fixed his eyes on Si Han, awaiting his reply. After a long time, his low and hoarse voice filled the quiet air, unparalleled. Lu Ying, he knew how high his master's standards were but never expected them to be that high. What does unparalleled even mean? Looks, brains and skills aren't enough? He needs someone to be extraordinary and omnipotent? After the initial shock, he was still speechless. Master, are you serious? That dumb wretch, who can't even kill a chicken and hasn't graduated from high school, is considered unparalleled? Even she can't match the meaning of this one word. The moment Sui returned from sending Yi Wanwan home, he saw a mushroom cloud forming on Lu Ying's head as he squatted by the foot of the wall. He sighed helplessly and walked over. Got scolded, didn't you? Sui, do you know the master's criteria for his spouse? Lu Ying asked Sui. Sui paused. I'm not sure, but it should be something quite perverted, right? Lu Ying, Master told me just now, he said one word. Which word was it? Sui was intrigued. And leld. Lu Ying mouthed each syllable in exaggeration. Sui, how could that stupid and weak girl bear the meaning of this word? Lu Ying exploded again. Sui wiped his sweat awkwardly, probably because beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. Chapter 181. Come at me 100 more times. By the little lake at school, after Chu Feng hadn't returned her call for a while, Yi Wanwan decided to go down to the lake herself. As she approached the lake, she heard a dispute in the vicinity. Yen Ran, I've learnt from my mistakes. I swear I'll treat you nicely from now on and we can get married after we graduate. Get lost. I've said it before, don't show your face in front of me. Gross. Yen Ran, swear with your heart and tell me that you weren't with this bastard to provoke me? Do you dare to say that you don't like me even a bit? Yen Ran, stop lying to yourself. Why are you with a person you don't like just for revenge? You don't like him at all. The person you like is me. Song Ziheng kept pestering Jiang Yen Ran while she was drunk and exhausted, and Chu Feng next to her had his fists clenched as he stared at Song Ziheng. But because he was in no position to speak at present, he didn't refute at all. Seeing that Chu Feng didn't fight back, Song Ziheng happily added, I've known Yen Ran from the moment we were born. She's liked me for 18 years. Who do you think you are? You think Yen Ran would fall for a gigolo like you? Stop dreaming. Yi Wanwan watched these three people from afar and let out a soft sigh. Jiang Yen Ran was still too soft-hearted and thin-skinned, unlike Song Ziheng, who was still shamelessly insisting that Jiang Yanran's value for friendship were in fact residual feelings for him. And with Jiang Yanran's character, even if she had feelings towards Chu Feng, she'd never say it out loud. Yi Wanwan looked around and picked up a small stone. She wrapped her palm around it, then flung it hard towards Chu Feng's calves. Chu Feng stood there, battered out of his senses. Then, a sharp pain suddenly arose from his calves as he staggered in a sorry plight. Chu Feng. Jiang Yanran noticed and woke up instantly. She quickly rushed over to Chu Feng's side and asked, "Are you all right?" "Yanran, I'm fine. Song Zihang. You've gone too far." Jiang Yanran was in a fiery rage. Song Zihang furrowed his brows. "What did I do? I didn't do anything. This guy's faking it." "You're still denying it." It was dark and only the three of them were there. Also, Song Zihang often bullied others because he was slightly more talented than they were. Who could it have been other than him? Who said I ended up with this guy just to provoke you? Who said that I still like you? Who said that I don't like him? Jiang Yanran suddenly pulled Chu Feng's neck, looked at his lips and kissed down. Taken. Good. Seeing that Jiang Yanran actually kissed Chu Feng right in front of him, Song Zihang's face turned green instantly. "Jiang Yanran. You." As for Chu Feng, he was like a steam train, almost ready to charge out from his motherland into the world. Bad. Which immortal Jia hit me? Come at me 100 more times, please. Yi Wanwan yawned and stopped watching. She retreated to her dorm without a sound. She knew that Jiang Yanran would never forgive Song Zihang. But, since Zihang now viewed her as his one and only lifesaver, he definitely wouldn't let her go. With her soft-hearted nature, if she wasn't more harsh with him, she'd be harassed for a very long time. Good thing I was here to end this once and for all. Now, she'd finally settled this issue at Jiang Yanran's side. That's one issue done and over with. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.